I visited the Marlborough Chalk Horse today, which is the fourth in my tour of chalk horses. This tea towel on my parents' larder door is what inspired me to try and visit all of the chalk horses carved into the hills of Wiltshire before I leave for Chile. I can actually see one of them from the window in the guest room at my parents' house. Wiltshire is full of rolling chalk hills, which makes it the perfect place to cut the turf off to make pictures by revealing the chalk below. And for some reason, horses were the animal of choice. Today there are 8 in Wiltshire and 1 in Oxfordshire that's still visible. Most of them are not actually that old. The golden age for making them started in the late 18th century, but the oldest remaining chalk horse, the Uffington horse, is about 3,000 years old, and the origins are firmly rooted in ancient times. We parked in the car park of St George's Church, which is on Pre-Shoot Lane, and that was a pretty good spot to park to be able to see the chalk horse and to be able to walk into Marlborough town centre. The Marlborough Chalk Horse is on the grounds of Marlborough College, which is a fancy private boarding school for teenagers. As we were walking along this path, we actually saw some kids in their uniforms making their way from their boarding houses to wherever their lessons were. But the chalk horse was actually here for about 40 years before the school was founded.
Can't really see the chalk horse all that well because it's hiding behind these trees. But let's get a little bit closer and see if we can get a better view from the corner. We just walked to the top of Granham Hill to try and get a better view of the Marlborough Chalk Horse. We do have an incredible view of Marlborough town. Over there, there's like 2 church spires, and between that is the high streets. And then over here, we're actually on the college grounds. And this is the Marlborough Chalk Horse. So here's its head and its neck. It's like very slender. And it's got 2 legs at the front here, and then its back legs are down there. This chalk horse was cut in 1804 by a student from a local school on the high street called William Canning. It's now in the grounds of Marlborough College, and I think the groundsmen of Marlborough College keep it maintained now. But when it was first cut, there was a sort of annual event where students from the school on the high street would come along and like repack it with chalk and scour the chalk so that it still looked white. And that continued until the original headmaster died, and then it was forgotten and allowed to deteriorate. And it wasn't until 1843 that a former pupil who had been involved in building it to start with decided to recut it and scour it. And that's when it went from being a 2-legged horse to being a 4-legged horse. Like all of Wiltshire's chalk horses, this horse was camouflaged during the Second World War so that bombers couldn't use it as a landmark. The last time it was scoured before it had to be camouflaged was actually in celebration of King George V's Silver Jubilee, which was in 1935. So we're leaving the chalk horse behind us and carrying on our walk into Marlborough town, where there is the most lovely tea room, and I cannot wait for a delicious cup of tea.
Marlborough's a really picturesque market town. It's got some lovely 17th century buildings, it's got a lovely farmer's market, my favourite tea room, but I didn't really manage to get any video of it, so I'm afraid you'll just have to take my word for it.
So it's the way back, and I'm just walking past the horse again and stopping to look at it this time. You can see where they've cut the grass off to be able to show the chalk underneath, but it just makes me wonder, how on earth did they make these things to start with? Like, this is way before drones were invented. Someone must have drawn a picture of a horse on a piece of paper and then somehow tried to figure out how to scale that up onto a hill. I wonder if they did calculations to account for the fact that most people view the horse from below, and so to kind of angle it a bit so that it doesn't look quite so spindly. A very successful chalk horse visit to the Marlborough Chalk Horse, and a lovely stop in the tea house once we got into Marlborough town centre. Successful day all round, I'd say.